and this is my video response blog to the Monopoly and Stratified Monopoly game that we played in class on Thursday afternoon. Just a little preface. I actually was in the poor class. I was unlucky enough to roll like a 5 in the first round, and so I was only allotted $500 to start, and faced significant challenges in. I could hardly buy any property. If I went to jail, there were significant boundaries for me to actually play the game. Significant obstacles, and so in general, on my board, it was very similar to what happened on the other board from other people's video responses, but there was kind of this difference in that there was less of our social interaction. People just relied on played the game a little more straightforwardly. In economic terms, that they basically focused on economic transaction rather than building kind of social constructs within that their class group. I know a lot of people. There was adoptions. There was state action on the other board. Where on our board, basically the only thing that the ruling class did was facilitate the bank. It was much more of a libertarian society in that sense, and so. I actually was lucky enough where the other person in the poor class and in the lowest class dropped out of the game, was forced into bankruptcy, where I had a couple lucky rolls. I purchased property. I never actually was unfortunate enough, and the upper class didn't really get the ability to develop kind of social constructs that significantly put me at a disadvantage. I think had we played longer, I would have found that it would have been impossible to keep up any sort of net gain in wealth. I actually ended up only gaining $167, but comparatively, that was almost 1/5 of my wealth, even 2/5 of the wealth that I was initially given, which is a lot more than what other people did. I feel like my reactions to this was that there's kind of this sense of apathy and helplessness that you face when the rules are so against you, and I think people end up starting kind of rolling as if there was no need to continue playing the game, as if they assumed the consequences would be against their favor. The upper class, I didn't get the chance to gauge how they felt about that, but I definitely did see that upper mobility was much easier for people like Justin in the middle class, who could focus on buying property and focus on obtaining wealth, much easier than anybody else in our classes could. There were no class alliances. Everyone pretty much acted on their own economic benefit. I think it does show that there is some sort of elite deviance that naturally happens due to kind of the impact of increased social mobility in the higher classes and decreased social mobility in the lower classes. But that really didn't have any social impact like it did in the other game. There wasn't so much an interaction outside the economic sphere. I can see a lot of real-world political power relations being modeled here. If you think about gerrymandering, if you think about real estate companies in the 60s and 50s, kind of blocking off spaces for what they consider to be racially pure classes and societies. I think that a lot of this can sometimes be kind of structured into the capitalist system, especially at the higher end, where as you start to obtain wealth and as you start to obtain capital, you're given a lot more ability to multiply that, as in the stock market, as in the bond market, as in the real estate market, and so I think in today's day and age, it's not as easy to talk about how the bottom half is subjected to social structures that put them at a disadvantage, rather how the top half has able to write the rule book and therefore give them an advantage to get farther ahead than the bottom half. And in so fact, they're kind of multiplying their ability to produce their own social mobility, and it's kind of increasing their ability to do so and obtain property, similar to what Justin did. Justin started in the middle class. He obviously recognized his advantage and did the most to kind of spread his wealth around the board, around real estate properties, with the idea that that would be effective.